All right, I'm not sure what I'm going to title this video. I'll figure that out. I want to talk about college football fans, reactions or opinions on things and how they differ, I guess, kind of if it's something about their own team versus if it's something about almost like any other team. And I know fan is short for fanatic, so sometimes common sense can go out the window, but there's just a couple of points I want to bring up. Some things that have come up over the last week involving Georgia Tech fans on the one side and Ohio State fans on the other. Not that they're arguing with each other. It's two separate issues, and the way those fan bases kind of react to things and how they differ. Good morning, it's Uncle Lou here. That's right, it is me, Uncle Lou, live on LouTube for you. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Also, in addition to that as well, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not already. I post these pointless, barely watchable college football videos almost every single day of the year. I also do call-in shows every Tuesday and Thursday night at 9 p.m. So if you disagree with something I say in this video or hell any other video for that matter, feel free to tune in on Tuesday and Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Give me a call and I'll be happy to educate you. Yeah, but anyway, let's get into it. So I'm going to start with kind of something I was pleasantly surprised about when it comes to fan behavior. Georgia Tech. Now, I was out of town last week when this came out. I put a little short video out about it. I don't want to talk more in depth about it now, but apparently Georgia Tech has given out rings for last season, a season in which they went 7-6, lost a bowl game to Vanderbilt, lost to their only rival, Georgia. Now, they did beat Miami. That was a good win. They are a better team and a better program now than they have been in recent history. The Jeff Collins era was terrible. Brent Key's there now. He's got them sort of trending in the right direction, I think. So I'm not here to crap on Georgia Tech as a team or a program. Like I thought for where they have been over the last 5 or 6 years, I thought they had a decent year last year. Did they have a year worth handing out rings for? No. This is a horrible look for the entire program. It's a horrible look for Brent Key. As the head of that program, he's the head coach, and I understand the athletic director runs the athletic department, but nothing like this happens without a head coach signing off on it. It's a terrible look. And then they get 2 games engraved. The win against Miami. Look, that was a big win. Miami was a top 10 team for portions of the year. I believe they were a top 10 team when Georgia Tech beat them. They finished, top 20-ish or so. They lost to Syracuse late in the year, lost their bowl game. But then they also had the Florida State game engraved on there. Florida State was one of the worst teams on the planet last year. Florida State was one of the worst teams in recent memory last year. I mean, they were, I don't know, like just go back over the last 10 years and like pick out the worst team in college football each year of the last 10 years and try to figure out how many of those teams are better or worse than last year's Florida State team. Like they were horrible. 2-10, some of the worst quarterback play imaginable. The offense just didn't even exist. I mean, I don't even need to go into it. Like we all know, we laughed about it all year. And this isn't the crap on Florida State. It's the opposite. Crap on Georgia Tech. Why in the world would anybody even have the idea of handing out a ring and putting the Florida State win on it as some sort of a statement? And then even if someone did have that initial idea and was dumb enough to express it to someone else, why didn't that someone else go, what? A ring for 7-6, and then you want us to engrave that we beat a 2-win team? No, we're not doing that. No. It's weird. It was a bad idea. It reeks of like Butch Jones type stuff from Tennessee when, they were just terrible in every imaginable way. But, to hear Butch Jones tell it, he's always got some sort of weird spin that he would put on, life champions and just all kinds of weird. They handed out a ring, didn't they, for beating Virginia Tech or something in the regular season in a game that was played at a racetrack, whatever. The whole thing kind of reeks of that sort of Butch Jones type of like fake hype. It was just a terrible idea all the way around. I don't know. Whoever okayed that should be fired. Brent Key should come out and distance himself from that. It was just a horrible idea. Now, here's where the point of the video. How did Georgia Tech fans react to that ring? Well, while I obviously don't know and can't get inside the mind of every single Georgia Tech fan on planet Earth, Uncle Lou was pleasantly surprised at the reaction from Georgia Tech fans to that ring. And it was mostly panned by Georgia Tech fans. Why are we doing this? This is a terrible look. This is embarrassing. There were a handful of Georgia Tech fans that I heard come out and kind of try to back the idea. But it's usually the percentages are reversed in a situation like this. It's so hard for fans to criticize their own team, program, coach, players, rings for 7 and 6 seasons. A part of it has to do with like kind of the environment we're in with you know, kind of the internet, social media era where sort of everything is an argument and, you know, I'm never wrong and you're never right. And so therefore, you know, if my team is Georgia Tech, I can't admit that anything they do is wrong. Like there's a lot of that on the internet too. And so that's kind of the reaction I was expecting. From the majority of Georgia Tech fans was that they would, because they love Brent Key. And I think Brent Key's done a great job there. Nobody is perfect. No coach is perfect. This is an example of Brent Key making a wrong decision. Again, you know, was it his idea that he have final say so and all that? I don't know. But at some point he would have been looped into this and he should have said, no. This is terrible. Our goal is not to be handing out rings for 7 and 6 seasons. But the fans, the Georgia Tech fans, to their credit, 80%, 90% of the reaction, again, that I've seen. I can't talk to every Georgia Tech fan. I can't go to every Georgia Tech fan's Twitter page and read their reaction to this ring, okay? So, but the point is, let's say it's 80-20. Like, that's about what I saw. 80% of the Georgia Tech fans doing what I think they should have done, which is to say, this is not it. This was bad. This shouldn't have happened. We don't need rings for 7 and 6 seasons. This is like a participation trophy. 80% were that. 20% were, you know, maybe trying to make excuses for it or whatever the case. But again, typically in a situation like this, those percentages are reversed. You'd see 80% defending whatever action it is, 20% sort of disagreeing, right? Take the Michigan cheating thing, right? What percentage of Michigan fans, when you talk to them about the Connor Stalions thing, can just come out and say, yep, you know what? We were cheating and we got caught and we deserve to get punished. How many of them can just come out and say that and leave it at that? 20% maybe? It should be 100%, you know, but it's 20. And then 80% are like, well, you know, it was just Connor Stalions and nobody else knew and it didn't matter anyway and everybody does it and, you know, whatever, like that, right? That wasn't the case here with the thing with the Georgia Tech rings. And I spend a lot of time kind of pointing out the idiocy of college football fan bases when they tend to do or act in a stupid way or whatever. I thought it was worth at least coming on here and giving some credit to, again, the majority of Georgia Tech fans that I've seen talk about the ring situation there. Because they're not buying it. And like, it should be easy. Again, it doesn't mean Brent Key is a bad coach. It doesn't mean Georgia Tech's not headed in the right direction. It doesn't mean Brent Key can't, you know, get you wherever it is you think you want to go as far as a football program. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means that in this particular instance of handing out rings, whoever did it, whoever approved it, whatever, for going 7 and 6 and then engraving it that you beat a 2-win Florida State team is pitiful, piss poor, pathetic, and sad. Like, that should be really easy to admit. But generally, when these things happen, it's not, for whatever reason. For the fan base, they have to try to, you know, provide cover for their team or whatever. Credit to the Georgia Tech fan for not doing that. Now let's switch to the sort of opposite end of the spectrum here and talk about something. This isn't new, but it's going on again now with Ohio State fans. And it's just their unwillingness to sort of just accept a bold, 100% undeniable fact as a fact. Like, they just can't. There are some questions that when you ask the question, the answer is short, simple, easy, and does not require a but at the end of it. If I ask Ohio State what their record is all time against Michigan, why is it a 3 and 4 day argument? You look foolish, silly, insecure, petty, unable to admit that the sun rises and sets every day. Ohio State has a losing record to Michigan. That's the end of the sentence. Or at least it should be. These Ohio State fans, and I get it, it pains you. I assume it pains you to have a losing record to a rival. I would have no way of personally knowing, as my favorite team has not one, not two, but three rivals, and a winning record against all three. So I can't put myself in your shoes in terms of how miserable and depressed I would be to have a losing record to a rival. But I'd like to think that even if Georgia did have a losing record to a rival, I would be able to just say Georgia has a losing record to whatever team, without having to add a but at the end and then spend 3 or 4 days trying to find corners in a circular room, doing mental gymnastics with myself to try to come up with some type of weird way to make it seem like Ohio State actually has the winning record. And they've been doing this for a while now, but it has reached levels I didn't think I would ever see. Let me put this up on the screen for you. I seriously thought this was somebody just trolling Ohio State fans when they put this out. This was an actual Ohio State fan tweeted this. He has gone through and picked out, I don't know, a dozen here, random points in history. And he wants to calculate Ohio State's record versus Michigan based on these random points in history. Now, we've heard the argument made before. Well, in my lifetime, Ohio State has this record against Michigan, so therefore that's all I care about. As if football was invented on the day some random fan was born. A football series has a hard and fast start date and end date. A football series started being played whenever it started being played. Not when you were born, not since you watched your first game when you were 8, not since whatever, just pick one. This series didn't start the day man landed on the moon. This series didn't start the day the completion of the first general purpose computer. The fact that somebody not only went back in time and wrote down all the dates for these monumental events in human history, like the discovery of penicillin, right? But they then calculated Ohio State's record against Michigan from that specific point in time to now is absolutely mind-boggling and mind-numbingly stupid for whatever dumbass took the time to make this. There is no dispute over when a football series starts. A football series starts the day the first game is played. That's it. You got all these people here. Well, I don't count anything pre-AP poll. This is another one I hear from Ohio State fans all the time. Oh, well, but they didn't even have the AP poll up until 1936 or whatever it was, right? Well, go back and look up Ohio State's own records. They count all their wins pre-1936, pre-AP poll. Ohio State's got wins early in the 1900s. They count every single one of them. But because you have a losing record to Michigan, somehow that specific game you want to just erase from the history books. Well, the Michigan series didn't count. Yeah, all our wins against whatever teams in 1920, those all count. Or whatever year, right? But the Michigan games don't count. It doesn't count until this year. It doesn't count until Google was founded or the fall of the Berlin Wall or whatever random points in time these idiots are making up. I went and looked it up just out of curiosity. I asked an Ohio State fan on Twitter, I said, hey, what's your all-time record against Northwestern? He quoted me the all-time record against Northwestern. I looked up the all-time record versus Northwestern, and he was right. I then went and looked at Ohio State's record against Northwestern year by year. I looked it up myself, year by year. Ohio State claims 9 wins against Northwestern, pre-AP poll era. The same period of time where they're trying to tell us that their losses to Michigan don't count. They claim 9 wins against Northwestern, pre-AP poll. But all their losses to Michigan pre-AP poll, that doesn't count. That doesn't count. That can't count. That shouldn't count. There are only 2 ways to sort of calculate, the whole who owns who debate. Oh, well, look at it, Georgia Lou fan. Alabama owns Georgia. Yes, they do. Now, do you see how easy that is? Alabama owns Georgia. Alabama has a winning record against Georgia. Alabama beat Georgia last time they played. Those are really the only 2 time frames that should be relevant at all when it comes to a series record between 2 teams. The all-time series record or who won now, right? Well, Michigan owns the all-time record over Ohio State. Period. At the end of that sentence. Not comma, but if you only start counting in this year or you only start counting in that year, or you don't count these losses to Michigan, even though we claim all our wins we got in that period of time, don't want to claim the loss. No. It's either all-time series record, in which case Michigan has a winning record all-time against Ohio State. If you don't like that, then you can go with the most recent matchup. Well, unfortunately for the Ohio State fan, that goes to Michigan as well. 4 straight they've won. Now, they were cheating during a couple of those years, and that's true. And that's Michigan man's cross to bear. They've got to put up with your shit talk about them getting caught cheating during the period of time that they've been beating your ass the last 4 years. Okay? But they beat you. They weren't cheating last year. They were horrible last year. Beat you like you owed them money, dummy. Still beat you. I don't understand the sort of insecurity. It's a psychological problem that Ohio State fans have. And this has manifested itself in other ways too for Ohio State fans. I've never in my life heard an Ohio State fan say, we lost that game because the other team was better. I've never heard of, never. It's the weather. It's where the game was played. It's what time the kickoff was. If it's a neutral site game, well, the neutral site was closer to the school we played than it was to our school. It's the wind. Somebody got injured. Never mind the fact that this is football and there's injured people in every game. It's always something. Their record against the SEC is another one. Ohio State has a losing record against the SEC. In the postseason, they improved it last year because they had 2 wins against the SEC in the postseason last year. But their postseason record against the SEC all time is 4-13. Now, what they try to do to make themselves feel better is they go back in time and they find a bunch of wins against teams that weren't in the SEC, but now are. And they try to count that. And it just doesn't work that way. If when Georgia beat Southern Cal in the Rose Bowl in 2017, that was a win against the Pac-12, not the Big Ten. Southern Cal's in the Big Ten now. It doesn't mean that, if you're calculating Georgia's record all time against the Big Ten, Georgia doesn't get a win against the Big Ten for beating Southern Cal in 2017 when they were in the Pac-12. Like that win against Southern Cal gets added to Georgia's record versus the Pac-12, whatever that record is. It's just mind-numbing that the Ohio State fans can spend so much time. Again, how long do you think it took for this guy to put this list together where all these random points in time Google founded, internet becomes available to the general public, the Apple II released, the discovery of DNA. This guy went back, looked up all these specific dates, then calculated Ohio State's record from that date to now against Michigan, all in an effort to make himself feel better about Ohio State having a losing record to Michigan. It's unbelievable. So 2 examples here of fan bases sort of acting opposite ways. Georgia Tech fans looking at something that they don't like. No one likes to go on the internet and be the butt of jokes, you know. But the ring thing is what it is, and the Georgia Tech fans, again, most of them that I've seen over the last week since this ring thing was announced, said, you know what? This is dumb. I can't believe we did this. This is stupid. I can't defend this. That's what most of them have said. And that's what you should say. And if I ask an Ohio State fan what their record is against Michigan, they should just quote the record, and that's it. Not but, and then argue with me for 5 days about how they've got a winning record over Ohio State from the day MTV launched till now, or the day they were born. Football wasn't invented on any of those days. A series record starts the first time you play a team. That's it. So you're either better all time, better now. All this arbitrary dates, y'all got to cut that shit out. Cut that shit out. Salute to the Georgia Tech fans, Ohio State fans. Do better.